Hello, and thanks for joining me for the first session in a series of webinars as I share my BricsCAD journey. My name is Heidi Hewitt. I am the User Success Manager at Bricsys, the makers of BricsCAD software. And after more than 3 decades as an AutoCAD user and almost as long working for the makers of AutoCAD software, I've recently transitioned to BricsCAD, and I'm excited to share my experience with you. If you are also transitioning from AutoCAD or another CAD application, or even if you're completely new to CAD, I want to help you make the most of your investment and help you get completely up to speed and productive with BricsCAD. While we're waiting for others to join, I'd love to hear where you're from. I'm coming to you from the Rocky Mountains here in Colorado, but if you wouldn't mind typing in a comment there in Facebook, we'd love to see where you're from. So today is all about getting you started with BricsCAD. First, I'll show you how to download and install the free trial. It's fast and easy. Then I'll introduce you to the primary user interface elements, including some familiar as well as some new and innovative ways to access commands. We'll take a quick look at the default BricsCAD workspaces, and then I'll show you how to experiment with BricsCAD at different trial levels. Before we get started, I'm curious to know if you're already using BricsCAD. Have you already downloaded the trial, or are you just getting started, just starting to investigate with BricsCAD? But feel free to put in a comment there in Facebook just to let us know kind of where you're at in this process. All right, so what I'm going to do first is take you to the Bricsys homepage, and you see the link over here on the left, bricsys.com. So if you haven't downloaded the trial yet, I'm just going to spend a couple minutes to take you through that process. So this is the Bricsys homepage, and down here at the bottom, you'll see that bright green button for download. Now, if you click on that, you will, to get to the software to download it, you will need to log in. You can do that from various social media tools, or down here, if you've already got a Bricsys account, you can enter that, your account and your name and password. Or if you don't have one yet, simply click on Register Now. It's super easy. Just enter an email address and your password, and of course, confirm you're not a robot. Once you do that, you're registered, and then I'll just back up here because I've already registered. Then you'll have your name and your email and password that you can enter to log in. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. I won't take you through the whole download process, but I just want to show you some of the options here. When you download BricsCAD, you can choose from 3 operating systems: Windows, Linux, or Mac. I'll choose Windows. And then you've got a choice of these different languages, 18 different languages to choose from. I will stick with English, and I'm using 64-bit for my operating system here. And then, of course, you'll read the terms of use and agree to that, and then choose download. Now, I'm not going to download it now just to save bandwidth here, but I will show you sort of what the process is if you do that. And it's super easy. I have downloaded BricsCAD multiple times on different computers across my wireless network here at home, and it's taken me about a minute to download and another minute to install. Now, when you start the download process, you will be taken through the wizard. Again, very easy. You can, of course, you'll read the license agreement and accept that, and you can specify where to install it. I just take the default location, but you can change that. And once you begin the install, after it's finished downloading, it begins the install. You'll have some options. You can choose if you want to install include the shortcut on the desktop. You can also display the release notes. Those are selected by default, but of course you can turn those off. And then you have these options for file types. So DWG is the default file type. That's the native file that BricsCAD creates. So you can choose to associate that, as well as some of these other probably familiar file types. You can associate those with BricsCAD if you choose. Okay, once you start the process, it starts copying the files and installing those. And again, like I said, it took me about a minute to download, a minute to install. All right, once it's done installing, then you can choose right then to launch BricsCAD, or launch it at any time later, just like you would any other application. If you have downloaded and installed the trial, then it will give you that trial period, which is typically 30 days. I must have done it at just the right time because I got a bonus day in there. But anytime during that trial period, if you choose to purchase BricsCAD, you can simply launch it. Even if your trial has expired, you can launch BricsCAD and then go in here and enter license and enter that license key that you purchased. So you don't have to uninstall and reinstall. All right, so that is just a quick look at the install process. Now what I'm going to do is take you into BricsCAD. Once you launch it, this is what you will see. So it pulls up, the first thing that you'll see when you launch BricsCAD the first time is this welcome window. And I'm going to introduce you to this starting at the bottom. So down here we have tutorials, and this is a great resource to be aware of. You've got the newest links to various tutorials here. If you go up to the menu on the right side, you can open that and look at different categories. Looks like it might be a little slow pulling up, maybe because of my bandwidth here. Okay, so I'll skip that, but trust me, if you go over there, I would suggest doing that. You can search on certain topics. If you want to search, for example, maybe you want to find out more about blocks, you could search on that, and it will come up with the content that's relevant for blocks. So a lot of great resources for you to be aware of and come back to. Moving up, what's new here? These are the release notes. So if you remember when I was showing you the install process, you had that option to display release notes as soon as the install is finished, and you can do that. But if you don't have time to read through those during the install, or you're so excited to get started with BricsCAD, then you can always come back here to the welcome window and the what's new tab and read through those release notes, which I definitely suggest doing because it does have a lot of good information. For each update or release of BricsCAD, it will show you what's been fixed. It will show you improvements. So some of these updates have new functionality in it. So definitely worth looking through the release notes, the what's new there. All right, moving up again now, profile presets. BricsCAD comes with 5 profile presets, and you can, that's kind of hard to say fast. You can think of these as profile templates. So these are just sort of to get you started, but you can customize it and then create your own profiles as well. These are just sort of getting you started with these templates. So you can select what profile you want, and you can create multiple profiles. Like I might choose a 2D drafting one, but you can also select, let me just point over here, you also select the units, and this will drive what template is being used by default when you launch BricsCAD. So I'm in the US, I'll go ahead and choose inches, and then again, choose which profile you want. I'll select 2D drafting. I could leave the name the way it is, or I could add some other thing. I'm just going to say HH for Heidi Hewitt, just to know that this is my customized profile. Maybe I might customize it later. Okay, now before I choose OK, I want to point out something real quick here. The very first time you install and launch BricsCAD, you will not have this Getting Started tab up here. That will only appear as soon as you create your first profile. Okay, so these are templates, these 5 templates, but as soon as you enter one, give it a name here, and choose OK, it's using one of those profiles and creating your own profile. It's adding it to the Get Started tab, which it now will display, and you will see it down here at the bottom. Now I have already created a 3D modeling profile, so I had my Get Started tab already with this 3D modeling profile, as well as this 2D drafting HH one that I just added. Now you'll also, if you've been working in BricsCAD, then it will, again in this Get Started tab, it will display your most recently used drawings. So you can select, if you're going in and working on these files frequently, then you can select the most recently used ones. You can also open other drawings. If you click on this, that will take you to a navigation dialog where you can navigate out to your hard drive and select a different drawing. You can start a new drawing, in which case it will use the last template that you used, or start from templates. So if you have other templates you want to navigate to, you can choose that option. Now before I go in and start a new drawing, I do want to point out a couple other links here. In the upper right corner, this Get Started Help, that's a useful link that will take you to the BricsCAD help system specifically within the Get Started topic. So you can learn more about this welcome window here. Okay, and then this link at the bottom, that's a little bit hard to read because it's kind of gray there. You can, if you don't want to see the welcome window every time you launch BricsCAD, you don't have to. If you know that you're always starting with the same default template and the same profile, then you may not want to see this. I do encourage you to keep it in mind though, because you may want to come back for what's new and tutorials. But if you don't want to see it, you can just turn this on so it doesn't show this window again. And I'll show you in BricsCAD, if I remember, I'll show you how you can get that back, get this window back. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just turn that window so that it doesn't come on every time I launch BricsCAD. And I'll choose New Drawing. So we'll use that template that that profile template, those settings that I selected from that 2D drafting template. Okay, now before I forget, let me just quickly show you how to get that welcome window back. You turned it off, but if you want to get it back, you can use the Get Started command, and you can see down here at the bottom, I'm typing that in, Get Started. And right now it's off because I turned it off. You can just turn it on or set it to 1 if you want it to reappear every time you launch BricsCAD. The other thing I'm going to show you real quickly here is Profile Manager. So if you just start typing Profile Manager, you'll see there on the command line. If I pull that up, that shows me those 2 profiles that I created. So these are the ones I've actually created using those other 5 template options that I had. And this is where you can manage them, set different ones current, or delete them if there's a profile you don't want. So if you turned off that welcome window, this is a good thing to know about because you can manage those profiles in here. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about the user interface. Now at the top, you've got menus. So if I scroll across here, you'll see I can access various commands and tools from these different menus. I also have toolbars that are displayed by default, so I can launch my commands from those toolbars. Over on the right side, I've got the Properties panel, which is displayed. Now this is, with any of the panels in BricsCAD, you can drag them and move them and put them in different places, close them, whatever it is, dock them to the side. So Properties is just one of many panels that you have. Down at the bottom, I've also got the command window. This is a panel too, so I could do the same thing. I can move it and resize it, do whatever I want. I'm going to put it back down there for now. But with any of the panels, you can do that. Now, if you right-click on any user interface element, one of these panels or toolbars, you'll see access to the various user interface elements. So here under BricsCAD, I've got access to my various toolbars that I can turn on and off, and you can see there are many of them. And all these others right here in the middle, these are all panels. So those are very easy to turn on and off. So I could turn Properties off right there or turn it off on and off on the panel itself. All right. In the lower, actually before we get into command access, I just want to point out a few more things with the user interface. If you are coming from an AutoCAD environment like I did, then one of the first things you may notice is that the ribbon is not displayed by default. If you would like the ribbon, you can right-click on any of the user interface elements, and the ribbon is just another one of those panels, so you can turn that on. And there's the ribbon, or right-click and turn it off. I'm going to turn it off for now because I'm actually going to show you in just a few minutes a user interface option that is unique to BricsCAD that I think you will find really valuable. Before I do that, though, I want to talk about the command line because I know for many of you that is probably a way that you can consistently access commands. It's very efficient typing in commands, and you can do that in BricsCAD just like you have done in AutoCAD or other CAD applications. So down here on the command line, for example, I could just start typing a command, maybe C for circle. As I start typing, it narrows down the options that I have. BricsCAD does support command aliases, so if you just type C, for example, it will pull up the C alias, and you can see in the parentheses that's the circle command. So you can just hit enter right there, and it will launch the circle command. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll choose circle. Now on the command line, you'll see that you do have the different options available too. So again, this may be very familiar to you, and you can type in the various codes like 3P for 3-point circle, or different options here. But I do want to point out in BricsCAD, you also in the upper right corner, those command options are displayed in this menu. So you can type them at the command line, but you can also select them up here. And while most of the commands and the options are very familiar if you're coming from AutoCAD, there are a few that you might notice that are additional in BricsCAD. For example, this multiple circles. I'm just going to select multiple circles, and then I'll choose my option for creating a circle. I'll just choose the 2-point option, pick a couple points, and then because I had already selected that multiple option, it just repeats that same circle that I had just created. So keep your eyes open if you're transitioning to BricsCAD from AutoCAD, because there are a few little things that to be aware of that can help you become even more productive. Okay, so that was the command line. And again, if you are coming from AutoCAD, you can use BricsCAD in pretty much the same way that you've been using it. But there's another tool I want to show you that is unique to BricsCAD, and that's called the quad. So I'm just going to erase these objects, select them, erase them. And what I want to do is start turning off these user interface elements. Now I can do that one at a time. I could turn off one of these toolbars here one at a time, but instead of doing that, what I actually want to do is turn on the quad. So to access the quad, actually before I even do that, I'm using the quad right here, right now, and what I want to do is set a clean screen. So I am blanking out on where clean screen is. Probably right in front of me. Okay, well I'll just type it because I know what that is. Clean screen on, okay. So clean screen, that turns off all those user interface elements except the command line. But what I want to do is actually turn the command line off too, which seems a little bit scary, but it's actually not. And the reason for that is if you watch down here as I start using commands, you'll see that even with the command line off, it will actually display command history. And I can continue typing just as I might do automatically, typing in commands and options. I can still do that even with the command line off. So what I'm going to do now, though, is completely use the quad. And I just want to show you how easy it is. You just right-click to access the quad, and it knows, BricsCAD is really intelligent, it knows if you don't have any objects selected. So it gives me tools for drawing objects. For example, I can come down here, draw a rectangle, and I'll just pick a point. I'll actually start it at 0, 0, and maybe I want to draw a floor plan. I'll just say maybe 30 feet, tab, just like you're probably used to doing. We'll say, oh, that's a big room, 20 feet. Okay, so you just start drawing. Now I have an object selected. Again, if I right click and I don't have any object below my cursor, then it's going to give me relevant tools, settings tools and drawing tools. But if I right click on top of an object, like right here, notice that the tools that it gives me are different. It's actually giving me tools that are relevant for that object. So I might get some editing tools that are relevant for a rectangle, or modify tools where I can move it or change its position or mirror it. Things that require having an object selected. So I won't go into that. We can do a whole session just on the quad, but I just want to emphasize this is super powerful, and you can literally do everything you need to do in BricsCAD without even using the command line or without displaying it. Because again, I could just type C here without the command line up, and you'll see it's displaying. Let me type it. I can start my circle. It's displaying the options, even though it's not taking up any space. So quad, super powerful. In the future, I will try to do a session just on the quad. But for right now, I want to go ahead and move on to a few other topics. Just want you to be aware of that. You can turn it off down here in the lower right corner, but I definitely don't recommend it. It doesn't get in the way. If you leave it on and just maybe slowly start experimenting with it, use BricsCAD the way you've been using AutoCAD or other CAD applications, but start experimenting with the quad because it's right there and easy to access. All right, so next I'm going to switch over to my presentation. Got so many screens going here. So we talked about user interface, we talked about command access. Now Workspaces. Before I get into Workspaces, I just want to point out a few things, and to do that I'm actually going to pull up the BricsCAD, whoops, website again. So let me pull that up. And I want to point out, if you go to BricsCAD and you go to products, here down at the bottom, so here we've got, I went to products and this is the BricsCAD product. Down at the bottom you'll see different purchase options. And I want to point this out before I show you Workspaces because I think Workspaces will make a bit more sense after you understand the purchase options. Now, if you downloaded the trial, the BricsCAD trial, you might have noticed that it did not ask you which version or which edition you wanted. By default, the trial gives you the Platinum edition over here on the right side. And that has just almost anything you would want, except I'm going to talk about some modules that are quite valuable, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But BricsCAD is available in 3 different editions: Classic, Pro, and Platinum. Now, if you're like me and you're coming from an AutoCAD environment, you can think of Classic a little bit more like AutoCAD LT, except BricsCAD Classic does have full Lisp support. So if you do customizing with Lisp, then you will get that support with Classic. Now, Pro has more options. Think of BricsCAD Pro a little bit more like AutoCAD. It's got everything that Classic has, plus it's got direct 3D modeling, rendering and visualization tools, access to over 1,200, more than that, third-party applications. So it's a little bit more like AutoCAD if you're coming from that environment. Now on the right side, we've got BricsCAD Platinum, which has everything in Pro, plus additional things like assembly modeling and deformable modeling, a lot of additional tools that are available just in BricsCAD Platinum. The other thing that I need to point out here before we start looking back at the workspaces is that BricsCAD Platinum is also a foundation for additional modules. We have a BIM module and a sheet set module, and if you want to use either of those, then you will require Platinum. That's the foundation for those. Okay, so let me go back into BricsCAD, and I want to talk about workspaces. I kind of changed my workspace. I made it clean screen. I kind of switched things around a little bit. And you can completely customize your workspace. You can change what's in the ribbon. You can totally customizable. But we do have default workspaces that come with BricsCAD. And if you look at the bottom of the display here on the status bar, you'll see I've got 2D drafting is set right now. If I right-click on that, I can choose from one of my other workspaces. There's a total of 5. So I could choose 3D modeling, for example. And this looks very similar to 2D drafting, but you'll see that I have a few other menus, like I've got the model menu here, which gives me access to solids and surface type tools, so a lot of 3D tools up there. And then if you go back to the workspaces, I could choose mechanical, and that displays a very different looking workspace. And here I've actually got a ribbon that's displayed by default, but again, you can customize these workspaces and the way all of this behaves and looks. But with the mechanical workspace, I've got these palettes over here, like the mechanical browser. I've got the standard parts. This even comes with a library of some standard parts that you can use. I could just take one of those and insert it in here. And that's a 3D part. So it does come with some standard libraries. And of course, you can create your own and add your own there. All right, if I right-click on the workspaces again, I can see the sheet metal workspace, and looks very similar to the mechanical one, but it does have some additional tools like the sheet metal tab right here. And then quickly, we'll just look at the BIM workspace. I won't go into the tools on any of these because this is just an introduction here. But with the BIM workspace, you do have tools that are specifically relevant for BIM. And one of those includes, you've got, just a whole bunch of, a lot of different panels there that you can access. Okay, so I won't talk about all the different tools in the different workspaces. What I want to do instead is point out how you can test BricsCAD at different trial levels. So we talked about workspaces. I'm going to go ahead and turn the command line on quickly here. We talked about workspaces. Now I want to talk about trial levels. After explaining to you the different purchase options and that you can purchase BIM or sheet metal to go on top of the Platinum Edition, I want to show you how you can experiment with your trial so that you can find the right software for you. There's a command, it's called run as level, and if you just type that at the command line, you'll see the different options here. If you choose BricsCAD, which is the default option, I'll just hit enter to accept BricsCAD, you'll see you can choose from Classic, Pro, or Platinum. By default, when you install the trial, it's setting you up for Platinum, but you can change that. If you type C for Classic, maybe you come from a 2D drafting environment, maybe AutoCAD LT, and you want to see how BricsCAD compares, you can set that to Classic. Now, do notice here at the bottom, it does tell you that you will have to close and relaunch BricsCAD for you to have that different functionality. Okay, let me go back to run as level. So I'll change BricsCAD, I'll change that back to Platinum. Now, if you want to experiment with some of the BIM or sheet metal modules, again, you can use run as level for that. So remember that it does have to be set, BricsCAD has to be set to Platinum for sheet metal or BIM to work. But you do get, when you install the BricsCAD trial, it automatically installs the sheet metal and the BIM modules as well. So again, you could go in there to sheet metal, and by default, if you're using a trial, it will tell you that you're on a trial license, or you can, if you purchased your license for BricsCAD Platinum as well as the sheet metal module, then you'll be able to enter that license information. Okay, so completely flexible. If you're a CAD manager, this is a great tool. This Run As Level is a great tool to be aware of because you can experiment for your different users. You can see which combination of software is just right for your various users. All right, so I just want you to be aware of that. Now let's go back to the presentation and get through all that again. All right, we talked about workspaces, trial levels, so that really takes us to the end of the presentation. There's, of course, so much more I can talk about, and we will be doing more webinars in the future, and as I continue my journey through BricsCAD, I will be doing more of these, taking you through the different functionality in BricsCAD from Classic, Pro, and on up to Platinum, BIM, and Sheet Metal. So for now, though, if you are looking for what to do next, definitely if you haven't installed the trial yet, I encourage you to do that. It's a fast, easy install. If you want to remove it at a later time, it's also easy to remove. But definitely encourage you, and not just install it, but use the trial. You'll have 30 days, and I encourage you to install it when you have time to take advantage and use it, because there's a lot of great functionality there, and if you're transitioning from AutoCAD or other similar CAD applications, I know you'll find it an easy transition. Also, subscribe to the BricsCAD blog. There's a lot. I'm going to actually pull this up and show you that very quickly, because this is a great resource, and it gives you access to other resources. So the BricsCAD blog, this is where you'll find my journey as I've been documenting my way through as I'm learning BricsCAD. You'll find all my various blog posts. You'll find things about BIM, anything that we have to post and share with you. You can find this on the BricsCAD or BricsCAD blog. Also, if you go to the bottom of the blog, you'll see that there's you can register, subscribe to our newsletter. You can also follow us on various social media channels. So I definitely encourage you to do that, to follow us on the blog, because you'll get the latest updates and find out what's going on with BricsCAD. All right, let me go back to this presentation. And here, I'll come back up to see you again. So in addition to subscribing to the blog, you can follow BricsCAD from various locations: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Also, I'd love you to follow me on Facebook. I put Facebook, I actually meant LinkedIn. LinkedIn and Twitter is what I meant there. And then if you have questions, purchasing questions, or you need to learn more, then you can call BricsCAD at 833-BricsCAD or 833-274-2797. So those are just some of the ways. There are so many resources that we could point you to. If you already have BricsCAD installed and you are having some issues, you can go up to the help system. If you go up to the help menu and open that, you'll see a link to support. So that's another great resource to be aware of. There are just so many resources that I couldn't cover today, but definitely reach out to us, and we would love to help you get started and make the most of your investment and your transition to BricsCAD. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this valuable, and stay tuned as we have more of these sessions in the future. Thank you.